welcome to The Mystery of Life. I'm Jo.
And I'm Jonny.
And today we're asking, is Mothman real? Now, I didn't really know where to start with this because I've got an issue with cryptids, and apparently he is one.
He is. I'd say he's more on the spiritual side of cryptids.
I'll be honest, I didn't really realise I had an issue with cryptids as such, but I do. And it's the same as Bigfoot. If you've listened to any episodes previously, you'll know that my issue with Bigfoot is simply that we would have found him by now. And I now feel the same way about Mothman. But I figured, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong because I didn't know much about Mothman. So I thought, right, I'm going to research. I'm going to put in the work. And let's see if I can talk myself around. What do you know about Mothman?
Winged beast, red glowing eyes, usually the foreseer of doom.
Yeah, so I guess we'll start with the story, really. The legend that was Mothman. And this all started in the late 1960s. It was November 12th, 1966 in Clendenin, West Virginia. It was actually a group of gravediggers, which sounds odd, but it was genuinely their job. And not very original though, is it? We start with a group of gravediggers in a cemetery. How spooky. How fitting.
It was just a job. Gravediggers aren't allowed to witness anything because they're too spooky a career.
Oh, maybe. Just a bit cliche. Right. Not that we've ever had anything spooky discovered by
gravediggers. We didn't have things
before.
like excavators, so their job was actually pretty needed and pretty...
Okay, well, apparently they saw this massive figure moving around from tree to tree. They later described it as a brown human being, but I don't actually think they meant the colour of their skin. They mean bear.
Yeah, I don't, yeah.
No, and they said that they were scared, and I wondered if they told anyone this at the time. But a few days later in Point Pleasant, also West Virginia, which is where this whole thing becomes a massive thing, they were along the bank of the Ohio River, and there were two couples, and they noticed a white-winged creature, 6 or 7 feet tall, standing in front of the car they were in. Now, they knew each other, the couples, not the Mothman and the couple, so they weren't friends. Hi, Mothman.
Yeah, obviously, why would they be together otherwise?
Yeah, I just mean but other than that, the fact that there was 4 of them, to me, that kind of brings a little bit more credibility to this story. Because when it's just one person, you sort of think, okay, well, one person saw it. But then you've got a group of 4.
Only if you believe bored teenagers in the 60s. Only if you think that these 4 people are all credible does it add any weight, because otherwise it's just 4 friends lying.
Maybe. They seemed quite shook up. They said that they saw this creature and he stood in front of their car with bright red eyes, and the eyes were about 6 inches apart. They had a wingspan of 10 feet. And apparently he was sensitive to the bright headlights on the car, he wanted to avoid them, but he could fly really fast. Now, some people allege that they drove up to 100 miles an hour. I've no idea how we know this in terms of, I can understand driving a car 100 miles an hour, but to say that the bird is flying 100 miles an hour, we're just not very good judges on this. So he must have been right next to the car.
I mean, yeah, you could estimate based off your speed, but it's not going to be anywhere near accurate. And I've heard the story before.
Yeah.
But I'd never really clocked onto the description because now I don't know how it got the name Mothman.
Why?
It flies really quickly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't like light.
Well, apparently he's a clumsy runner. So he's not very good on the ground. But you put him into the air and he's fierce.
Most winged things are a clump. Look at a penguin go.
Well, I was thinking you would be panicked though, wouldn't you? You'd sort of run away. I mean, they drove away, but you.
Yeah, but what I'm saying
you're not in a good mindset.
The 2 main attributes I think of when I think moth.
Yeah.
He does the opposite of, because moths fucking love a good light. But they're not very fast flyers.
They do fly into the light. Oh, I see what you mean. But he flew away from the light. They fly into the light. Yeah.
I don't know. All I'm saying is I don't know how they went there. The Mothman.
I guess it's the most accurate thing you can think of to describe something you don't know what it is. Well,
when you see it drawn.
Birdman?
No, when you see it drawn, it does. You see why it's called Mothman.
Yeah. Well, apparently he flew after them and chased their car into the outskirts of town, and then he disappeared into a field. And they went to the police, who did go out and look, to be fair, but couldn't find anything. I mean, it's the kind of beast where unless he wants to be found, he can just fly away. Not all that surprised that he wasn't there when they got there. Apparently, reporters were sceptical, but they did print the description as a man with wings. And then more and more sightings were logged.
I'd be interested to know that if there wasn't a news story, would people have come up with the same descriptions of something that scared them in the dark?
Yeah, but I don't know how you test that. I did have the same thought. Lots of people.
No, you can't. It's impossible.
Yeah.
But by putting it in the news, because their standards were pretty low and not much was really happening apart from the Cold War.
Well, there was hundreds of reports after this over the next year.
Yeah.
Hundreds.
Yeah, we're getting into hysteria territory a little bit because it was a very small community.
It was.
Where this happened.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about Point Pleasant in a minute. But Linda, one of the couples, one of the four, was actually interviewed later on. So, like, more recently, within the last few years, for a History Channel show. So, obviously, you're going back a bit. To remember that far back, we know that eyewitness accounts don't do well over time because your mind sort of fills in the blanks.
Yeah, and old people, God bless them, they're not the best at memory in the first place.
She's not like decrepit, but she was, she's older.
This is a fact of life. Your memory goes as you get older.
She must have been at least sort of 60
Think how many things
odd.
have happened to her, like that her brain has got a catalogue for her to hold on to the actual memory of that bloody night.
Well, the thing is, everything was reported in the newspaper before, but this time she speaks like on TV. She's part of this show. And she says that her and her boyfriend and the other couple pulled over to do some amateur stargazing. It's like, all right, Linda, call it whatever you want.
They were gonna have to do some necking.
Yeah, that's amateur stargazing. But she says now, this is what she says when she reported it to this show, that there was a bright white light and then it went red, and there was this giant thing above them. So she doesn't actually call it a craft or anything like that, but she just says that whatever it was covered the sky so that when they looked up, they could no longer see the night sky. It was this giant thing. And then as they're scared and they drive off, that's where they see Mothman in front of the car. So it's almost like this new part of the story has been added. That's not to say she didn't report it to the police at the time, but it certainly doesn't appear in any of the new newspaper archives.
I would have thought that would have come up.
Yeah, because are we now saying that Mothman is from space? Like, unclear. It just moves on. Then we just get the whole, like, description thing.
You would have thought that the thing, when you were telling the story, the thing that led to you bumping into Mothman would be part, like, I don't know how Mothman suddenly makes you forget the UFO above your head.
Yeah, so I found that very odd, and it was the same Linda.
I get if you forgot what sandwich you were eating just before, but a UFO above your head, that's really tricky to avoid.
Yeah, maybe he's just got his own, like, vehicle. Maybe it's not from space. Maybe he's just pottering about. I don't know.
In the Mothmobile.
Yeah. Okay, so other reports include 2 firefighters who say they saw a very large bird with very large red eyes. And another sort of prominent witness was Newell Partridge, who reported strange patterns on his TV when he heard a noise outside. So he went outside and he went to see what was up. He took his flashlight and he shone it about. And he saw the red eyes first. He described them like bike reflectors as he shined his flashlight at them. Now, he became a bit notorious because he said that this incident led to the loss of his dog. Like, his dog went missing after this. So is he saying that Mothman took his dog?
I think that's what he's alleging, yes.
I don't like that.
Well,
I don't like that from
I
Mothman.
suppose if you see a Mothman and then your dog goes missing, you're probably going to assume that the Mothman ate your dog, aren't you?
But did he eat it or did he take it for companionship? Because no other dogs go missing.
This is true. It's not like he's we don't know if he's not, like, these people may be thinking their dogs are just going missing and it's Mothman.
I really want to believe.
Plus, he can fly. He can go anywhere. He's probably stealing dogs all over the shop.
I really want to believe that Mothman is a good guy. If he's taking dogs, I'm not a fan.
Depends. If the guy was abusing the dog, he was like, "I'll give you a good home." Puts it in the Mothmobile.
You think he rescued the dog?
Yeah.
I also want to know, after he shined the flashlight at it, like, what did he do? Because the report ends there. He just, like, tells people that, the red eyes and the flashlight and everything. But it's like, did it fly off? Did you just back away slowly? Did you scream?
Dog.
Did you run? Like, he didn't see him take the dog. So again, I just feel like, ask more questions.
Yeah, a lot of these, like, so-called, like, stories aren't even really stories.
No.
It's just, I saw a Mothman.
And, like, I've seen these, you can look them up online. You can see the actual reports in the newspaper archives, and they are tiny little, like in a newspaper, obviously it's all columns, isn't it? And it's just a tiny little square, usually, like in the bottom on that day.
Man sees Mothman.
Pretty much, yeah. Winged creature spotted again, that type of thing. At one point, a large group of men went out to hunt the creature. And there were so many that the sheriff has to actually put police patrols out to direct traffic. And I mean, I've got to be honest, I'm not surprised I didn't catch it because they clearly don't know anything about hunting. I'm led to believe you're meant to be, like, still and quiet. Big crowds, usually it would just fly off.
Yeah. That was more like a mob.
Yeah, yeah, it was. It was an angry mob with guns, yes.
Which I don't think is the tactic to get a winged, like, to catch a flying thing.
No, it certainly doesn't seem
because it can just
so.
go, oh my God, there's a mob, and then fly away and you're fucked.
Which I'm guessing it did because we didn't catch it. So, as I say, over the period of about 13 months, there was endless reports. Like, pretty much all the time, there was some sort of report of, winged creature spotted again, Mothman seen again. And they generally all shared the same sort of description, that he was a large man-like figure with wings but no feathers. So sometimes it was reported that his wings had feathers, but not him. He was very much just like a muscular man. Yeah. Somewhere between 6 and 9 foot tall in the reports. His face couldn't be made out. It was indistinguishable, apart from these massive glowing red eyes. And he was a fast flyer.
Sounds like a lot like a bat.
And clumsy on the floor.
It couldn't be more like a bat.
Well, I guess you couldn't call him Batman, could you? Because that was taken. Maybe he would have been Batman if Batman wasn't popular at the time.
Well, yeah, I'm just wondering if people have mistakenly seen a bat.
That would be a very, very big bat.
No, it doesn't have to be big. Humans are stupid.
Yeah, but...
They see it and their fear makes it so much bigger and then they remember it as huge.
I don't know. I've seen a bat. I don't think there's any amount of bat that could make me think it was that big.
Well, the description sounds oddly like a bat. I'm not sure about the red eyes, but everything else sounds like a bat.
Okay, well, then we come to the bridge.
Ah, the infamous bridge.
Now, in December 1967, so it was exactly 13 months after the first reported sighting, they had this big suspension bridge. It was called the Silver Bridge, and it connected Point Pleasant, it connected West Virginia to Ohio. It went over the Ohio River. It was busy and there was quite a lot of traffic. And apparently there was one single eye bar, which is just a bit on a bridge.
A beam.
Yeah. And it was on the top of the bridge on the Ohio side, and it literally fractured and a chain snapped and the whole thing collapsed. Now, it was a tragedy. It was awful. 46 people died. The river was like ice. So if you fell in the river, that wasn't good. And 9 other people were injured. Now, there wasn't the same regulations as there were now. And by that, I mean, this sort of led to bridge inspections after this. If one of these eye bar things broke, that was it. They all went. Whereas now, obviously, there's things in place. So, like, if this breaks, this happens. And if this breaks, this happens to try and prevent this sort of tragedy.
There was no redundancy. Like, one bit of the bridge breaks, it all breaks.
Yeah. Yeah. And it actually introduced specific bridge policies across the country. So it was a big deal. But then this was linked to Mothman. People saying they saw him before it had happened. People saying that he either made it happen or was he there to warn them that it was going to happen. I mean, he was very much in advance, wasn't he, if that was it? Because that was 13 months.
No. It wasn't that they didn't see him at 13 months ago. People saying that they saw him like the day before.
Oh, so he didn't come for this. He just happened to be around.
He was
like, this bridge is going to go, so I'll go and warn him. I see.
It was either he was either just warning, or I like the idea that he was there just taking out bolts.
Do you reckon he did it by accident? Like he landed on it, heard it crack, and it was like, oh, uh-oh. And he flew off.
This is not going to help my case.
Like he was just trying to be friends, and he landed on the bridge and it collapsed. Then in 1975, John Keel wrote the book The Mothman Prophecies, where he introduces the idea of UFOs, which I found interesting because that may or may not tie in with Linda's story, depending on
Well, I don't think it ties in. I think Linda has watched The Mothman Prophecies and is... I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and just say misremembering.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think she's making anything up specifically. But this really made Point Pleasant the popular spot it is today for everything Mothman. It drew everyone to the area, and as well, it really sort of brought out the ufologists or ufologists. How do you say that? Ufologists. It really brought them out and brought them into the area, which I found odd because no one really tied Mothman to UFOs until this book. Not really. He was just a moth flying about.
No, but ufologists are a little bit dum-dum sometimes. Like, because I believe the Mothman Prophecies has that based on a true story at the beginning of it. So people who don't do research watch that and think that is the true story. So then they're like, I better go hunt aliens there because it was a true story.
Well, that was the book in 1975. It was 2002 when the Richard Gere film was made. But yes,
either
you're
way.
Right. Yeah. And in the film, his wife died having seen Mothman first. And this just sort of kind of concreted the idea of Mothman being this symbol of like doom or seeing him before something bad happens. And over time, people began to link him to kind of everything. I'm surprised he hasn't been blamed for COVID, to tell you the truth. He was later blamed for, or linked to, I should say, not blamed. Let's give Mothman a chance. He was linked to Mexican swine flu, Chernobyl, the nuclear disaster at Fukushima, and even 9/11.
He gets blamed for a lot of different things, which is odd because he's supposed to be an animal, But this is what I mean. Like, he's kind of a strange cryptid because a lot of the cryptids are basically just animals with weird features.
Well, it was at this point that I started thinking, have we really reached this level of like folklore legend status? We've just a handful of people seeing, well, hundreds, I guess, if you believe the report, in that 1 year in the 60s.
I think, like with Roswell, I don't think it's this instant thing, like bang, overnight, it's that popular. But I just think it kind of steamrolled.
It did steamroll, yeah. Well, I just couldn't believe that was it. Was this all the sightings? And it turns out no. There were others.
There's thousands.
Yeah. More recently, I started to look for more recent ones, and apparently someone in Point Pleasant claims to have seen something jumping or flying from tree to tree in 2016. He had only just moved to the area, and he said he didn't believe in Mothman. Like, he'd got there and he was like, this is just this little town's like nonsense thing. And then he moved there and he saw it himself and he's like, now I believe.
Yeah, that's a nice little story.
There's also been a number of sightings in Chicago as well. So I wondered, had he moved? In 2017, did he take a trip? Because there were 55 reportings of him in Chicago. And apparently he would peer through windows, swoop at bystanders, and land on cars. No major disasters in Chicago in that time. Not
like he's just being an animal, but it's just big.
Yeah, it would be creepy though. Imagine opening your window to Mothman.
Body food, bruv.
Looking for stuff for his dog.
Yeah. I keep stealing dogs and kind of running out.
I have to say, there was no other reports of like dogs going missing with Mothman. So I'm sure someone somewhere believes that.
I will say that if you're going down the cryptid route, there being another Mothman in another place only helps it.
Well, that's my next question. Is this the same Mothman? Because he'd be quite old. How many Mothmen are there? Are there moth women?
We don't know how long they live.
We don't know anything about him or her.
Only old by our standards.
Yeah. There's a folklorist, John Harold Brunvand, and he says that in the 1960s, when this little bundle of sightings were reported, apparently there were hundreds of other sightings which happened, and those people were afraid to come forward.
Convenient,
thought, well, why,
isn't it?
But why is this? What are you worried about?
Well, you could be worried it's a demon.
So what? Like, what if you tell someone? It's not a secret. Demons don't normally swear you to secrecy.
No, but you may just fear people will think you're nuts.
Well, not in Point Pleasant, because everyone's seeing it. So you'd think that you'd be able to speak freely.
Well, I don't know then. I've given you the only options.
No, but that's what I'm thinking. I just thought it was weird. Were they worried about... Maybe they didn't want to get Mothman in trouble.
No, I don't think it's that. I think maybe they just didn't want to be part of it and they wanted to be left alone.
Well, this same folklorist also spoke of much older tales where things were reported about creatures being on car roofs of teenagers and scaring them, and tales like that, which might have actually contributed to the Mothman kind of prophecies and legacies.
Yeah, it definitely...
He's like modern viral, isn't he? Like...
He was.
Yeah, like at the time, he was viral before we knew viral was a thing. Well, he has become a bit of a local hero despite all this doom talk. The town has gone all in on Mothman. It is basically Mothman town, like Point Pleasant.
Why wouldn't you? As a man, like as the town manager, wouldn't you be like, right, we got to cash in on this?
I mean, I guess.
We're a small town in America.
They have nothing else like
exactly
to go there for.
Now they've got like a tourist trade.
Yeah, but he's got a museum. It does look quite cool. It's not very big, but it's got like historical archives of sightings with handwritten statements from people who have seen him. There is a lot of the props from the movie and all the movie stuff. Obviously, there's a merch store and a life-size replica. He has a festival which 10 to 12,000 people visit every year in September.
Sounds fun. I think we should go.
Yeah, I would. There also is a big silver statue of him with red eyes in the town centre.
They've really leaned. It's like Roswell. They've really leaned in.
Oh, they really have. They've gone all in.
I can't fault them because you're not good. Like, it's rare for a town to get this opportunity to put itself on the map like that. Like, we're in a small county in England talking about this town.
I mean, yeah. There must be loads of other little towns in America like this that I've never even heard of.
There must be millions of little towns.
Yeah.
Or thousands of little towns that you have no idea they exist.
No.
So yeah, like Roswell and this bloke, like good on, like the mayor knows what he's doing.
I mean, yesterday I tuned in to Mothcam.
Yeah, like all this kind of stuff.
Yes, it's a live webcam of his statue, which I did think like this is a bit weird because you're just watching his statue, but there are people there and like there's a chat thing and it's I mean,
as well. I think the idea is that he might come and visit his statue.
Yeah, maybe. But when I tuned into the Loch Ness cam. Well, when we were looking for Loch Ness Monster, I'm pretty sure that I saw her.
Also, if all you've got to do is knock down a bridge, I could get myself a statue in Point Pleasant.
Well, no, because you've got to be, like, seen before it.
Yeah, I can be like, hi, guys, and then the bridge falls down. I'm just saying they've got low standards for, like, who they admire.
Yeah, I guess.
Because all that happened was that he sat on their bridge and it fell down, and they're like, "This is the guy we're going to back."
All right. Well, should we get into some theories of what Mothman could be?
Sure.
Before I get into this, I will just say that when you Google Mothman and the Wikipedia page comes up, the first thing it says, before anything else, is not to be confused with Owlman. Yes, Owlman. Already, before I've even done my research on Mothman, there's an Owlman. Like, this is ridiculous. So, theory one, is he a bird? Now, there is, I should say, an associate professor, Dr. Robert Smith. He is a professor of wildlife and biology. He didn't believe there was a monster in town. He thought it might have been a sandhill crane, which apparently can stand as tall as the average man and has bright red flesh around its eyes. And they have a wingspan of about 10 foot. So that is a pretty big bird.
Yeah, and it would certainly, it would awkwardly jump around in trees.
Well, yes, apparently they weren't actually native to the area, but they could have wandered out of migration route. And then that would seem really strange to someone who hadn't seen one before. And there is evidence even today that they do get, over a period of 3 years, from 2017 to 19, 28 were logged. So we do know that they've been flying out of there. But it looks nothing like the Mothman we would all imagine. I will put a picture on the blog.
No, your imagination does have to stretch to get from that to that.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to with any of these. There's nothing that looks like a Mothman, otherwise it'd be a Mothman.
Yeah.
I think the highest chance is in each instance is some sort of misidentification.
Well, apparently some of the earlier reports did describe it as a bird-like man. Mason County Sheriff at the time in the 1960s in those sightings said that he believed it was a large heron, and apparently some owls have red eyes when light is shined on them. But I don't know. Locals who have seen it basically say they're not mixing this up with an owl. That some witnesses were very outdoorsy people who knew the local animals, they're going to say that and stuff like that.
Firstly, in their mind, they believe that's what they saw. And secondly, they don't want to become across as an idiot that's mistaken an owl for a mythical monster.
I don't really believe that it's an owl. I mean, we'll leave that to Owlman, whoever he may be.
I believe it could easily be any of the above as a misidentification and probably is a mixture of things.
I believe it's possible, but I do think it's a bit of a stretch based on what they're saying they've seen.
Not considering how much they've leaned into this. They've got an investment in Mothman himself, so no one's ever going to really speak.
Well, now they do. They didn't at the time.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
At the time, he was just a bird that was terrorising the village. I think terrorising is a bit harsh, unless he was to blame for the bridge. And then, he's a murderer, so...
You seem to be quite soft on Mothman. You seem to quite like him.
I don't know, I'm on the fence.
You just seemed like you want him to be, the story to work out well for him.
I just really want to believe in Mothman, Okay, so was he a deformed bird? There is logic to this because there was an area nearby that locals referred to as the TNT area. It was a series of World War II bunkers, which was part of a munitions site. People had theorised had actually leaked into the environment. They actually proved it at a certain point. As to how much it affected the wildlife, no one really knows, or at least it wasn't, not that I could find. However, we're then saying that this crane or other bird might have been like a deformed bird or some sort of beefed up bird from toxic waste.
I don't buy it.
You'd definitely have more than one, though, wouldn't you?
What ingredient in TNT? It's not good being in water. I don't think it would just kill I think it would just kill animals if they consume too much of it. I don't think it's going to have this weird genetic. I think the only thing likely to affect genetics is radioactive material,
which they might well have had because it was a bit of a top secret.
Well, I don't. There's a difference between dumping dynamite and radioactive material.
Well, apparently he can take off straight up like a helicopter. And apparently most birds can't do that. Most birds of that size can't do that. They kind of have a bit of a graduation.
Like a plane.
Yeah. But no, he could just launch into the sky. A bit like Thor.
Yeah, I mean, or head on, it would look like he's launching straight up when he's running towards you.
Okay, well, what about government accident? Now, this could go one of two ways. So the same munitions site, as I say, was said to have been top secret, and some people theorise that there might have been some sort of experiment gone wrong. Maybe it was a man who'd been given wings, or even animal testing gone wrong that then was sort of beefed up and looked like a man. But whatever it was the fault of government testing or experimentation, and one got free.
To what end?
I don't know, make a man fly? I mean, they would like this site as well was active up until the 1945, the end of the war. So that was a time where they weren't afraid of doing some nasty
having
shit.
Flying men is really going to help. It should be easier to shoot.
If they could fly like Mothman, 100 miles an hour.
Birds would get shot a lot less if they didn't fly.
What?
You don't shoot birds on the ground, do you? You shoot them when they fly.
I guess. But
so soldiers flying about with no cover, that'd be great. I know that the government is more advanced scientifically but I just don't think they're there yet. I don't think they can. Well, algae manipulation is quite low level.
Apparently this whole little village within the town, like people would be like picked up from their house by bus, and the windows would be blacked out so you couldn't see out. They'd get taken into the little bunkers and workstations and things, and then you'd get driven home. Like you weren't allowed to know what was going on there other than what your job was. And apparently after Hiroshima, the place was shut down. But you can still go there. It's actually a nature reserve now because there's trees all around it, but some of the old buildings still exist. They're just empty, and the whole thing is bizarre. It's horrible. It's quite spooky to watch, actually. It's not a tourist attraction. It's literally just abandoned buildings in the middle of what is now a nature reserve.
Yeah, I bet that looks eerie as
Yeah.
like something out of The Last of Us or something.
Yeah, it really does. It really could be in a horror film. And there's all like Mothman graffiti on the walls.
I think it's a cool idea, the government messing around and making a mistake, and it escaping or whatever, but big stretch. I mean, if we're not willing to believe it could be an owl, I think
I'm not willing to believe it could be an owl.
No, but so you're more
That's
willing
Owlman's job.
You're more willing to believe that it's something that's been made in a lab by accident and escaped than it just being a misidentified owl.
Not necessarily. I'm just saying it's one of the
options. It is one of the options.
All right. Well, what if it was a prank?
Yeah, I could see that getting out of hand.
It's hard to ignore the possibility, isn't it, that someone was messing about. I don't really know how. I guess, I don't know, bought some big wings or something.
Well, it may have even just started with those original teenagers just making it up.
Yeah, something like that. Or just a guy in a costume hovering on someone's wall, And then, of course, we know that Eyewitness does get a bit out of hand.
Yeah.
So you could have remembered, this guy was 10 foot tall when actually it was just like a 6 foot man.
The story gets told and retold and embellished.
And some people think that it might have started as a prank and... it might have originally started as real and then become a prank. So, like, they might have seen this large Mothman and then someone thought that's a good idea and gone out and done it themselves. So there could be, like, an element of truth in there.
Yeah, it's similar to Bigfoot. I do believe that just because there is fakes doesn't mean that all of them have to be fake.
Oh, Bigfoot. There was a hoax where some construction workers tied flashlights to helium balloons. I'm not sure what this has to do with Mothman, other than the fact that they were red, so I guess...
I guess people thought it was his eyes.
Yeah. But I guess it would have been odd to witness as well. But like you say, just because there might be some pranks doesn't mean there's not some real ones. Well, what about, is it our panicked mind?
Well...
In short, are we imagining it?
Straight up imagining it, no. But I do think that all of the folklore, especially, like, I imagine if you graft this, the sightings kind of go up in a ramp.
Yeah. There's two elements to this.
So I think that it's going to be misidentification coupled in with our minds playing tricks on us, and the story getting told and retold, and everyone just kind of putting their own twist on it every time they retell it, and it getting to the point where it's a Hollywood film. Yeah,
you're right. There's a couple of theories related to this. Some people think that it could have been kind of the embodiment of human fear. Now, when I say this, did they see something? For example, the crane or one of the other owls that have been theorised. A lot of people describe it almost like the same sort of demonic figure that people describe when they've suffered from sleep paralysis. And apparently a lot of people describe the same sort of monster when they're suffering from that condition. This tall, kind of hunched, big shoulders hunched over you, sometimes winged, sometimes not, kind of standing over you, just terrifying, even though they're not always necessarily doing anything to you. And apparently that's just what our panicked frame of mind will kind of pull these demons from our subconscious. Is it that we saw these scary animals, didn't know what to think of them, and this happened, a similar version of this? This whole thing that ties in with our friend, mass hysteria. Did one person see one thing? Did this happen to one person and then everybody else did?
There's a high chance of that.
Yeah. Sightings pretty much stopped, at least on the level of which they were being recorded before. So over that 13-month period, it was constant. Every day there was like a new sighting, something new. When the bridge collapsed, the people in Point Pleasant were like, we don't want to talk about this right now. We want to deal with this. And that sort of ties in with the mass hysteria theory, because something else has happened. Something's distracted you away from that. It's a psychological condition. Now your focus is on this bridge and the tragedy that's hit your town. Obviously, over time, it came back and, now there's a whole festival and everything else, but it's far less dark now than it was then. If you recall from our Demons in Schools episode a couple of weeks back, it's actually now called mass psychogenic illness. But I do feel like they're different because all the other mass hysteria episodes we've spoken about or touched on before, kind of like they have physical effects, whereas this really is just something that someone's seeing. It is just the kind of power of the mind, I guess, if that's what it is.
I suppose this is why they've renamed it, because hysteria, you think of like Won't somebody think of the children?
Yeah.
And these people were just like, oh, cool, Mothman. And they kind of accepted it. I think the phenomena is similar where they just know of the story of Mothman. So anytime their brain sees something they can't identify flying, it's Mothman to them.
And then finally, the paranormal. I mean, it had to come up because he may well be paranormal himself. We don't know what he is. Is he a moth? Is he a man? Is he a bird? We don't know. But obviously UFOs get brought quite a lot into this, which I did find odd because really there's no kind of anything to suggest that's what happened apart from Linda's current story, which didn't come out until years later. And then the book, which was fiction. So, I don't know, this big thing now. Did he come from outer space?
No, I doubt it.
And then the whole, like, he's hovering around before disasters. You know, is he seen before something bad happens? And then I suppose there's always the possibility that he's simply a Mothman. Like, maybe that's just what he is. Maybe none of these theories are a thing. Maybe he's just a Mothman.
Just a Mothman accidentally broke a bridge, so he's keeping it a little bit quiet. Like, I'm not going to like get too close. I did break their bridge.
Well, my lingering questions here are there Mothmen? Like, are there multiples?
Are there moth women?
Are there moth women? Are there moth children?
Do they lay eggs?
Where do they come from? Where do they go?
Do they hang upside down like bats?
Like, well, that would be Batman, Jonny. You've got the Batman already is a thing. Like,
Yeah, but I don't know what kind of I don't know if these are mammals or birds.
I just feel like there's a lot of unanswered questions here. At least with Bigfoot, people have like put forward theories that you could get on board with. There's a lot of unanswered questions about Mothman. So, Jonny, what is Mothman?
A figment of our imagination.
Do you really think that?
I'd love it to be real because he's never really done anything too horrendous.
Apart from the bridge, 46 people died.
Well, he's only around the bridge. So there's no evidence that he actually did it. He's just there.
See, now you have a soft spot for Mothman.
I've always had a soft spot for Mothman. I've got a soft spot for all cryptids.
This might be the most ridiculous episode we've ever done.
I have enjoyed the idea that he's just like an awkward like Mothman that's just like, oh, fuck, I broke the bridge.
Like, oh, they think I've stole his dog. Like, I don't know what to make of Mothman. I'm generally angry about cryptids on the whole because I just feel like we would have found them by now. You know, there's something of this world. Whether they came from this world or not, they're here, allegedly. So I just feel like we would have found them. But if Mothman is just one moth, I could buy it. I could buy that you wouldn't find him because my issue with Bigfoot is that they're fucking everywhere, so you would have found one. But if it is just one Mothman, he could hide. I think you could hide.
Yeah, he wouldn't survive though. I think there needs to be multiple.
We don't know what he eats.
I suppose they could self-replicate or...
He could be an alien. He could be like, 1,000 could be like
It could be a lost
teenager.
alien.
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I've talked myself into it, but I'm not as angry about him as I am about Bigfoot. So,
well, I think when you can fly, it's a lot easier to hide, isn't it?
yeah. So for me, what is Mothman? I think he's something that got out of hand. That's what I think Mothman is. But I could believe it. I don't know that I do.
I want to.
I think
he's a little bit harmless fun.
I think he's
And
misunderstood.
I'd totally get involved in like the Mothman festival and stuff.
Yeah, well, one day we will. When this is our full-time job, we'll go and wave on Moth Cam. I don't know. I think he might be misunderstood.
I hope so. You've got like a Harry and the Hendersons type vibe, but with a Mothman.
Yeah. Some people have had like harrowing experiences with Mothman, and we're sitting here like, oh, poor Mothman.
Well, yeah, but you've had harrowing experiencing with moths. But
yes, I have had harrowing experiences with moths, actually.
Reality, they're not actually like, oh, I'm going to get you. They're just doing their mothy things.
Actually, you raised a very good point,
So it's like, I was just flapping at you because that's what I do. I wasn't trying to scare you.
But I don't like that flapping. That's the thing. I know that a moth, at least in this country, I don't know about other moths, but like they're not going to hurt me. But it's just that like that chaotic flap that they do.
I do. If he flies like that, I do think it'd be hilarious.
No, well, that's the thing. He's supposed to be quite a good flyer.
Takes him forever to get anywhere because he's all over the shop.
Oh, Mothman. I hope you're all right, Mothman. Reach out to us if you can.
At least Owlman can fly properly.
We don't know anything about Owlman.
Well, I assume he flies like a fucking owl.
Oh, we'll bring you Owlman in weeks to come.
Mystery news.
Right, today I want to talk about Canada shooting down a UFO. 2, to be precise. So the news was that American and Canadian fighter jets, on orders from the Canadian President Justin Trudeau, were scrambled and took down a UFO, which unlawfully entered Canadian airspace last week, and they say posed a threat to aircraft in the area. Then a couple of days later, this weekend, the weekend previous to this episode being released, it shoots down another one. And this time it says it was a cylindrical object. So what are these? I'm surprised they're even telling us about these.
Part of me wants to say that when the government's forthright, it's more alarming. the chances of what they're saying being true when they're being so honest is I feel lower. So just because they're telling you they found a cylindrical object,
Well, they shot a cylindrical object out of the sky.
they can't. I imagine they couldn't hide the fact that they did it, but they can hide the fact of what it was, because at the moment America's shooting down spy balloons.
Yes, of course. So the week previous, we had the Chinese spy balloon, but we knew what that was.
But China was very unhappy about that, and maybe
Yes, they
Canada
were.
doesn't want to piss off them, so they're like, oh, we shot down an alien. Not a spy balloon, it was an alien.
Well, there was a lot of pictures of the spy balloon, which, of course, China say wasn't a spy balloon, it was a weather balloon. They've now got the spy balloon.
They don't need to know the weather in America.
Well, they've got this. Apparently, it wandered off course. The spy balloon. The weather balloon. I don't want to piss off China.
No, I think the most amazing fact about that is America's got more intelligence from the spy balloon than the spy balloon got on America.
Yeah, I don't really understand the spy balloon thing, because wouldn't you, given that we've got like Google Maps satellites and what have you up there, would we not be able to see more from that? It can't see inside buildings, so it's not going to know any government secrets, is it? I don't get it. Doesn't seem worth it to me. It was massive though. You see him pulling it out of the sea. So we've got the spy balloon. They're looking into that, but then it doesn't explain what these like two new objects were.
Well, the spy balloon can get to places other objects can't, and quite undetected. And
well, it wasn't undetected.
Well, no,
it was massive, and Montana saw it.
They're cheap enough that you can risk it.
Yeah, I suppose.
Like, you're not risking any life, it's just a balloon. But if you float that over the right base or the right place at the right time, you could gather intel from that.
Maybe, but it doesn't explain what these two are, because all they're saying is that just a UFO unlawfully entered the Canadian airspace. And
well, again, we need to be careful that
object.
We don't. That could be a drone or anything. I think we need to be careful that we don't conflate UFO and alien. And remember that UFO stands for unidentified flying object.
What if it was an alien, though? Give it a chance. See what it wants. Say hello.
Yeah, I mean, shooting it down's a bit much.
Yeah. Now we've gone into alien war.
You would have thought. See, that's the thing. If they'd got anything of anything value, we would have. Surely there'd be a war by now. He hasn't come here by himself.
Oh, I don't know. It's all very frightening, to be honest.
I imagine that there's something like some sort of spy shit they've shot down, and they know that someone's going to have witnessed the actual act, so they can't say that we didn't blow anything up. So
it was over Yukon territory near Alaska, so it wasn't like a populated area.
Not populated, no, but they
heavily populated anyway.
It probably could have been seen by someone, and you don't know. So this way they can say, "Yeah, it was a UFO," but really it could have been a spy balloon that they didn't want China to know about, or something Russian, or their own thing that got a bit out of control, or
I don't know. This is something to keep an eye on, I feel.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
This is like live UFO news, that we can report on.
There's a lot of UFO stuff that's come out over the last few years that I think just make it so much more compelling and less difficult to argue for. There's like military videos where you can actually look at something and go, well, don't know what the fuck that is. And
I wonder if that's what's happening here. We're in the middle of a new report.
It could be.
We just had to jump back on and add a bit to this episode. We are the night before release, so Tuesday the 14th, because they discovered another 2 UFOs in America and Canada, shot them down, and now, today, Tuesday, there was an RAF jet scrambled in Romania. Actually, it probably wasn't RAF, just a jet.
I don't know how we can't know what they are now, because surely we've recovered them.
Well, your friend Nick Pope went on the news.
Yeah.
He says not aliens.
Well, I believe him.
But then didn't he used to work for the government? Is he not part of this? Would they tell us if it was an alien?
I don't think you can say Nick Pope. Nick Pope's job was to discover aliens for the government. It wasn't to cover them up.
Maybe he has discovered them.
Maybe Nick Pope is a
double agent.
Yeah. Maybe he is an alien.
Deep conspiracy. But do you think they'd tell us if these were why are they telling us? What should we make of the fact that they're actually telling us about these objects? Because stuff like this has historically been covered up, hasn't it? And, come to light more recently that things like this have been covered up.
Well, maybe they've realised that despite all the cover-ups, there's an entire genre of film based around UFOs. Maybe they should just give up on the fucking cover-ups because people believe it anyway. Hasn't worked. People it's not like Roswell was a resounding success on the cover up front.
No. Yeah, maybe because they're not really saying what it is.
No, maybe like they're just like, look, let's just not say it. Let's just say exactly what happened without any pretense and let them do it.
Well, they have got bits of them now, so I guess
They
TBC.
know.
Well, that look,
It's a bit like Friends. They don't want them to know that we know that they know.
I don't know. It's all a bit weird. I don't know what to make of the fact that they're telling us. Of course, like the whole world's in like disarray, but also some people have like pointed towards, the war and stuff. Don't really think, he's had a whole year. Don't really think that's the key of this. I don't know. I vote alien.
I vote probably not alien.
Well, it's a ongoing story, so I guess we'll jump back on as and when anything more happens.
Mystery news.
Well, you can read more about Mothman and you can see pictures of his museum and his statue on our blog this week at mysteryoflifepodcast.co.uk. You can find us on Instagram at the Mystery of Life Pod, and we'll be back next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.